instead they're using a public ledger solution, well, these public ledgers can't really be shut down.
So right now, Olive Zero is largely in a research and development phase. So what can we expect for the end of 2019 and in 2020?
Right. So what we're really focusing on now well, what we have been focusing on is the design of the architecture itself. So the base level consensus protocol. And right now we're really building out new features, various feature sets that we can include on the platform. So sort of the next things that you can see from us will be our test net and how to run our test suite using our Golang implementation. And this will just be able to give you a base level understanding to actually verify and validate our claims. So if you look at what a lot of these other projects are doing, they make fairly audacious claims with respect to their throughput and capabilities, and sometimes it's hard to actually go ahead and do a proper testing to validate and verify what they're actually saying they can do.
Okay, and what if we fast forward to, let's say, 5 years from now? What do we see 5 years ahead from now?
Right. So I think what we really want to try to focus on is how to take some of these esoteric mathematical ideas and abstractions and actually apply them in the real world. And so really it's just a matter of having the proper, understanding and knowing that, hey, look, we can actually take these, I mean, to me, I'm a mathematician at heart, right? So that's my background is academia. So how can we actually take these difficult mathematical concepts and bring them to the real world and put them out there and actually make them, useful? So I think that's what we're really trying to focus on.
Sure. Well, best of luck with everything. Matthew Nieberg, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks again, Lauren. It was great to be on here.
And that's all for now. Please stay tuned. You're watching Block TV.
Welcome back to Block TV, where it's time for Crypto Crunch with one of the leading voices in the sphere today, with whom we are lucky enough to chat with weekly, namely Lou Kerner of Crypto Oracle and the man behind Crypto Mondays. How are you, Lou?
Great to be here.
It's great to have you on once again, of course. So, I mean, perhaps the biggest news out of the sphere right now is what's going on with Telegram. The SEC has, their grip on Telegram currently. What are your thoughts on the matter?
Look, I think that the SEC wants to some degree, to stop everything. That's where we're at now. It seems that the cat was already out of the bag with EOS, so they were fine kind of just with a slap on the wrist there, because that cat's already out of the bag there. But with Telegram, it hasn't been distributed yet. The SEC is still trying to understand how to manage these things. And so the easiest thing for them is to just not allow the distribution of these things.
So you mentioned EOS now, you mentioned what's going on, and you truly believe that the SEC is just trying to shut down crypto projects in general? Is that what you're saying?
I think that they are struggling to put them in context, struggling to get the rules that they feel comfortable with. I think that obviously there's a lot of lobbying going on in the security industry itself that is certainly not speeding anything up. And it's very unfortunate for the industry here in the United States, because it's telling people if they really want to compete without handcuffs on, that they've got to go outside of the United States.
Okay, so then taking it to the sphere, what do you think that this means for the sphere as a whole, and how do you foresee this ending? Let's theorize here.
Look, it's not great, but the industry is going to continue to move forward. It's just going to do it without the involvement with limited involvement of the United States. I still think you can get a lot of innovation in the United States, but once you actually start deploying these coins, utility tokens, things that aren't fully registered with the SEC, there's going to continue to be lots and lots of problems. So the easiest way forward for companies is simply to stay outside of the United States.
And so that's kind of what Telegram was trying to do up until now, and the SEC was like, they let them be for a while now. Everything was very hush hush and secretive. Why do you think it is that they chose now to do this?
Well, it's not only in how you sell it, but after you sell it in the secondary trading, how is that going to be handled? And there was really no way for Telegram to make sure that these tokens weren't going to get into the hands of Americans.
And shifting gears now, it's definitely curious to see what happens with the Telegram story. There was so much secrecy surrounding that, and any update, we kind of we crave it at this point, just from that aspect. But then shifting gears to something else that we crave a lot, we crave to know anything and everything that's related to Libra, of course, and especially this week, we're hearing about partners dropping out. They pretty much have no payment processors at this point, aside from UPay. If some people say they consider that a payment processor, others would disagree. But do you think that Libra could actually, fall apart before it ends up crossing that finish line into launch?
Well, the question is, what is Libra going to be, and where is it going to be that thing? And I think what we're seeing is that governments, the large governments around the world, those that have sound monetary policies, or at least believe that they have sound monetary policies and are at scale, I think that there is a lot of reticence to allow Libra to come in because these governments don't know what the impact is going to be. And so, the government, here in the U.S. is using all the tools at its disposal, including, I think, really bullying of Libra members and telling them, hey, there's going to be a lot of government scrutiny over everything Libra related, but not only that, a lot of scrutiny of everybody who's even associated with Libra. And so I think what you saw is a lot of people who didn't want this additional government scrutiny on them dropping out. And that is, I think, just an incredible indictment of the government action here in the United States.
Yeah, naturally, everybody was issuing official statements saying that in the future, if anything changes, if everything goes through, we are obviously still supportive of the project, right? That's something along those lines. It was Visa and MasterCard. And so we had, David Marcus testified famously at this point in front of him. He recently gave Bloomberg an interview where, some would say he was stuttering a bit. I get it. The poor guy has a lot of pressure on him at this point. But we have Zuckerberg coming up next week. Do you think that testimony in Washington next week will be good or bad for Libra?
I don't. I think it's totally indifferent. From the very beginning that it was announced, I believe that it's largely in terms of the grand ambition is DOA. Unfortunately, where we are today, if you have to ask permission to do something from the government, odds are that they're going to say no. And certainly, Facebook with a $500 billion business to protect, they have to ask permission. At this point, I don't think that Zuckerberg's testimony is going to help one way or the other.
Yeah, it's probably, I'm foreseeing similar questions that David Marcus got, essentially just on a bigger fish, so to speak. So now there are projects, I don't know if you've heard about this, but Open Libra or something along those lines. Basically, a group of people who've decided, Libra, great, we don't trust Facebook, so we want to take this aside. That being said, is there any way Libra can separate itself from Facebook?
Look, the way that it's constituted today, Libra, as we're discussing it, Libra, the entity that can leverage the 2 billion members in the Facebook ecosystem, that's going to be Facebook. I think you can, take the code and you can fork the code and get a lot of the positive aspects, obviously, of the code, and that's what Lucas Geiger is doing with Open Libra. And interestingly, he's got some real interest in that. So I think it's a great idea. And I think famously, obviously, as Mark Andreessen recently said, now 20 years ago, software is eating the world. Now Andreessen Horowitz is saying that open source is eating software. And so, an open source Libra, I think, is certainly a much better idea than the Libra that we have now.
Yeah,
that's controlled by Facebook.
We the people, they're taking it back, especially in the crypto community.
Exactly.
Once again, shifting it. Earlier this week, you had one of your regular calls regarding institutional investors. Can you tell us what they're saying about the market, about crypto?
Sure. So we had a great call with some institutional investors like Travis Kling from Ikigai and Matthew Walsh from Castle Island Ventures, and I think the general tone of the call, and there'll be a replay up shortly of the call, was that we're still very early in terms of institutions and what they need. And there are a lot of things that were discussed on the call, there were things that, certainly we are well aware of. Things like that, the scale today is not big enough to be of interest to significant institutions. The tool set, is still, broadly not institutional grade, getting better. And that's happening. And they brought up some other things that, that I hadn't heard before. Things like, even like career risk for people who are at institutions. If it goes up, great. Maybe you get a pat on the back. But if it goes down 80%, like it has on multiple of occasions, there is certainly career risk to putting your neck out as an institutional investor and saying, hey, we should put, an allocation of any significance into crypto. So, the bottom line, it was encouraging. We're making progress, but still a long way to go. And, the general view is, that this is a late 2020, if not, 2021 thing before we start to scale in any way with crypto.
So reading such a call, into such a call, would you say that they're neutral about it? If it goes well, it goes well. Or are you seeing optimism?
I think, look, there's optimism. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. There's Anthony Pompliano's Get Off Zero campaign for institutions, just to say, look, this is going to be a thing, and you've got to learn about it. By the time it is a thing, if you start learning about it, then it's going to be too late. And so the time to start learning about it is now, to start getting off zero. And the speaker said that actually, that message actually is resonating and with institutions. So at least they're having dialogues about it, but very few are pulling the trigger today.
Absolutely. Well, that's the fear, right? When you talk about the United States and these kind of setbacks, is that we're becoming, digitally illiterate, let's call it, because of that lagging behind, so to speak. So that is a legitimate concern. And then we're speaking about, things like Libra and Telegram. What are institutional investors' thoughts on things like that, on platforms like that?
Yeah, certainly. Look, none of that is positive. What they don't want is the additional regulatory scrutiny that we see a lot of the other players getting today. And so that's why most of them are just sitting back, waiting for the industry to evolve, waiting for the industry to scale, waiting for the tool sets to get better, waiting for the volatility to die down. So these are all things that we've been hearing. The general view was that we're making progress against them, but there's still a long ways to go. And the interesting thing is really, in my view, is how much do we even need institutions for this to continue to climb higher and higher? I mean, we're here, we've been, well north of double the price of where we are today without any institutional involvement. So, can we get to 50,000 Bitcoin? Can we get to 100,000 Bitcoin without institutional involvement? Certainly, I believe the answer is yes. Can we get there faster with institutional, investors come aboard? Undoubtedly, yes, as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very resilient space, right? Young space, resilient. We could see that with things like the Crypto Ratings Council that happened a couple of weeks ago. If you're not going to govern us, it seems like the space is going to find a way to govern itself in some way, shape, or form. Thank you very much, Lou Kerner, for joining us for that rendition of Crypto Crunch. It was great to have you on with us as per usual. For all you folks watching at blocktv.com, keep on watching for more cryptocurrency and blockchain-related news.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter. Nexo, the only crypto banking account. Open an instant crypto credit line